Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Finance Live. This is Dr. Finance, also known, Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance. We are in our fourth episode. We have a very special guest today. His name is Brian Jud. Brian is going to talk to us about money and how it relates to a very interesting niche market. He's going to explain that to you, but it has to do with book selling in a very interesting way. So here we go. Let's give Brian a great welcome. Welcome, Brian Jud. Welcome,
My pleasure.
Brian.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Anytime. Thank you, Brian. So let's get started. Brian, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in this business?
Sure. Actually, I was in the corporate world and was laid off my job and decided that I wanted to try something totally different. So I thought, how hard could it be to write a book? And I found out that that's hard, but that's the easy part. But I started selling it as I thought the only way you sell books is through bookstores. The topic was job searches, how to get a job. So I thought you sell books through bookstores. So I got into Barnes & Noble and Borders and learned about distribution discounts of 70%, learned about returned books in any condition. And so I thought there's got to be a better way. And then I had this is before print on demand. So I had about 5,000 books in my garage and I would sell 100 and get 20 back and sell 100 and get 20 back. And my wife said to me one time, Brian, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I said, what's that? She said, the garage. So I had to go out and sell 5,000 books. I thought there's got to be a different way. So really, Tony, a really important question I asked is, who else can use the information in my book? So I thought college students, international, state governments. So I started looking at these other places in which to sell books and found out instead of selling one book at a time through a bookstore, I could sell 5,000 books at a time, non-returnable, to the state government. So I immediately decided I was going to try to do it. When I started writing my book, I made a decision I was going to start a business. I wasn't just going to write a book. So I created this business around the first book and built a long list of titles of that. But I made that decision a long-term decision to create a business. So I had to become profitable quickly. And I learned that by selling books to non-bookstore buyers, particularly in non-retail buyers, was the best way in which to do that in the long term, but also revenue in the short term.
Thank you, Brian. And just to qualify, Brian, actually, he was one of my heroes when I started writing books, or the thought crossed my mind about 20 years ago. I first met Brian, I believe you were working for Book Surge. Is that what it was called before CreateSpace?
Actually, I was working for Book Surge, then CreateSpace, both, yes.
Yeah.
Not working for them. I was doing a series of monthly webinars for them. That's correct. You have a great memory.
So Book Surge eventually, I think, became CreateSpace, and then Amazon bought out CreateSpace. It's on their Kindle platform now. So when I was first writing books, I was thinking about how could I do this the non-traditional way without going to a bookstore. I'm sorry, without going to a publisher. And that's how I went into this platform. And Brian was already there. He was miles ahead of everyone else in the beginning of the online book revolution. So I give Brian a lot of respect for that. And we've become good friends today. So Brian, can you tell us a little about your childhood? How you got started with this in the beginning? Like, did you ever think you were going to sell books in this market?
I never did. Well, I shouldn't say that, Tony. I always had the desire to be an author. I shouldn't say always. I was always writing something, whether it's in classes. I was growing up in college. I was doing that, and then in my corporate world, I was writing business plans, and not just I worked for an advertising agency. I was writing ad copy. I was writing strategy platforms. So I was always in the process of not just writing, but strategic writing, and to try just to use the whatever document it was as something to further the corporation. So during college, during my early time in the corporate world, I did a lot of writing, and so it wasn't a major decision when I was laid off. It wasn't really a totally different concept to go into writing a book, but it was just using the information that I practiced over the last few years, and putting that into practice in written format. The first book, I was in marketing positions in the corporate world, and my first book was about how to apply a marketing plan to getting a job. The 4 Ps are product, place, price, promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the product, how are you going to price it, where are you going to get it, and how are you going to promote it? So I even leaned upon my early years in college and the corporate world to create the first book. And it was different enough that it really took off.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. So you're originally from Connecticut, is that right?
Not really.
No?
From New Jersey,
Oh, from
Eastern
Jersey.
New Jersey. Then I went out to school out in Ohio,
Okay.
University of Cincinnati, then Xavier, and then back east. We ended up in Connecticut, but yeah, I'm initially from New Jersey.
Okay. Right. I'm
Sometimes
from
that,
Philly,
sometimes that,
so we have a lot of history, I guess, a lot of connections.
sometimes that comes through in my accent.
Yeah,
Ask for a cup of coffee or something. Or
coffee. Yep. How do you say
what's
water?
water?
All right. Well, great. Thank you, Brian. So let's start a little bit about, let's see, your book. Okay. So you wrote a book called How to Make Real Money Selling Books.
That's correct.
Okay. So, and you say publishers should stop selling their books. What do you mean by that?
That people don't differentiate between a physical book and content. Authors are selling books, and the readers are buying information. They want to buy the content in that. So I think that you need to be able to sell or communicate the benefits of the content, which leads to sales. I use the analogy, Tony, of the Arm & Hammer baking soda.
Mm-hmm.
That's used as a deodorant, deodorizer, toothpaste, putting out fires and recipes. But the product hasn't changed. It's the same physical product. And the same with a book. The book is a physical product, but it's used in many different ways. A retailer wants to increase store traffic. They want more profit per square foot. They want inventory turns. A librarian doesn't care about that. They want to help their patrons.
Mm-hmm.
A producer on a TV show doesn't care about that. They want to get a good show for their audience and higher ratings. A corporate buyer doesn't care about that. They want to, excuse me, they want to introduce a new product or help their employees become more productive. Association wants to increase membership. So everybody has different reasons for buying your product. So the idea is that you define each of these potential target buyers or segments, find out what they want, and then you market to them differently. So if I did a fax before email to librarians, and the headline was, "This book is 2 years overdue," which meant it should have been out 2 years ago. It's just kind of a play on words with librarians, but that got a really good response. But that would have meant nothing if I did a similar campaign towards the media or towards retailers. So the more that you can segment your different buyers, communicate to them the reason why they should buy your book, then they'll buy more of it. So you're not selling your books. You're solving problems. You're creating benefits. People, they say, I want to make more money. Well, why? Do they want to just increase their savings? They want to save for a mortgage. They want to save for college education. They want to save to buy a mansion. They want to save to buy a boat. So these different groups have different reasons of why they want to become wealthy. So you want to be able to make sure that you can communicate to them, here's how you can use this information in my book to save for your child's college education, or here you can save for retirement. So it's totally different target readers who are looking for, how can this information in this book help me achieve my goals? So they don't want to buy a book. They can go to a seminar. They can listen to you. They can go to online and do a search. So the idea is you have to let them know that why your content is most likely to help them reach their goals. If you can do that, then you're not selling your book. You're selling you're not selling the steak. You're selling the sizzle, as the old term goes.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur, Brian?
Oh yeah, I have to have been over the years. Just to I started out writing books in the early 1990s, and towards the end of the 1990s with the internet bubbles, it was just anybody who wanted a job had one. I couldn't get on. I couldn't pay to get on a radio show or a TV show, so I had to create a new direction. And then when I was doing the job search information, I did a video for interviewing, because it's difficult for me to describe eye communication or facial expression or gestures or posture. So I did a video on that. And then the economy got better, and then more people were writing books and publishing books, I did a video program called You're on the Air, using the same concepts of facial expression, gestures, posture, and it was about helping authors get on TV, or getting on and performing on TV and radio shows. So I did that, and then I started a business where I was helping other people sell their books to non-bookstore buyers, demonstrating the techniques that I learned myself, and then continue that over. So I've reinvented myself, again, as an entrepreneur, but reinvented myself several times in the course of my business to respond to the economy, to respond to what people wanted, and to respond to my growth as a businessman.
That's a very important concept, especially highly relevant today with the great pandemic depression. What are your thoughts on pivoting? So let's focus on that for a second. So an entrepreneur knows the word pivot, or if not, at least knows what it means.
Exactly right. Sure.
Right? Because
Yes.
every time something hits you, you have to learn how to swivel around it and figure out how to get through it. So
Sure.
some of the biggest moments in our economy are perfect examples, like right now. So how have you pivoted as an entrepreneur, especially during the great big moments in economic history that you've probably experienced?
Yeah, on a smaller scale, one example of pivoting was I had my job search 101 book, and I took that to a state government, and they say, "We love your book, but we're not going to buy it." I said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, we do workshops, and a perfect bound book, you try to lay it flat, it just falls up upon itself. It doesn't lay flat." So I took it to Staples, cut off the binding, put on a wire binding on it, and brought it back to them. I said, "How's that?" And they said, "We love it." They put in a standing order for 8,000 books a quarter.
Wow.
And then I said, "Who's doing your workshops?" He said, "We have a variety of people." Well, why not have the author do the workshops? So they're using my book as the workbook, and they're paying me for the book, and also paying me as the instructor for it. And I took that to other states. And then I thought, so I guess my first pivot was to get away from the bookstore sales into these non-bookstore sales. And another pivot was selling to colleges. That college students didn't want to buy a $14.95 book, and they're frugal, as I was, cheap. So I took chapters out of it, interviewing, preparing for the interviewing, telephone skills, or preparation, just 8 different booklets, chapters, and created booklets from those. So I sold those to the colleges.
Wait,
and then
I'm sorry. Can we pause for one second? So
Sure.
you took the book and you stripped the chapters out and made them little booklets and sold them
Right.
individually. Wow, that's a great idea.
Without even changing a word. Yeah, I changed a couple words, obviously, to make everything
Yeah.
fit. But it wasn't. It was pivoting from the fact that people didn't want to buy my book. So how can I get that information to them?
Right.
So I created that, and then if they bought 10,000 booklets, I printed their corporate name on it, their college name on it, and then took the same concept to state governments. That they have these booklets in Connecticut from that when people signed up for their unemployment benefits, they, 1, had to watch my video, and 2, got a packet of these 8 little booklets. So then once I got one state to have this program, that pivot, I was able to take that to other states. And so you get several states ordering 8,000 books a quarter. It's very easy to plan ahead, and also to get large quantity pricing. And I was able to cut my pricing down, my unit cost down significantly. So I became much more profitable from that one.
So let's pause a moment. Your first year or two.
Sure.
Entrepreneurs usually, when they start out, they are starting out from ground zero, or mostly in a negative. Was that your situation? Were you pretty much one of those entrepreneurs that started out? You didn't have a whole bunch of money to support you. You were going forward.
Matter of
right?
fact, I had twin boys in college at the time, so
Okay.
and it had no job.
So
So yeah,
once you got your first couple gigs, I mean, you were getting 8,000 books coming in one shot. Uh, that gave you enough funding to get over the hurdle. What I'm getting at with this is that an entrepreneur,
so
if they can get past the first year or two, which is usually the roughest when they don't have much money coming in, it's usually a lot easier after that. Would you think?
well, there are two important points there. One, the fact that you have to have a philosophy of reinvesting. I reinvested. I didn't just take profit out of that as income. It was
Hmm.
tempting, but I reinvested that into the business to create new titles, new ways of marketing these. So it was very, very important to do that. So as again, I looked at it as a business, not just selling books. So I had to reinvest and reinvest to make that work. So that is a critical part of that. So that um, you have to have that long-term perspective. And another element of what you're talking about is that to get these larger sales may take 2 years to occur. That just that one for that 8,000 books a quarter was something I worked on for a while just to get to that point. But there are two parts of special sales. One is retail, one's non-retail. The non-retail, the corporate sales, associations, and they're buying large non-returnable quantities. Where the retail, they're buying in smaller quantities, and if the book doesn't sell well in 90 days, it's off the shelf. They replace it with something else that works. So I was setting up a variety of different retail outlets, so I get some short-term revenue while I'm working on the long-term sales.
Right.
So that's part of the plan, and I think that's another critical part of entrepreneurship. That of I say that marketing or creating a business is as simple as pie. If you plan, implement, then evaluate. Too many people just jump right into the implementation. I've got my book done. I'm gonna go sell this. I'm gonna go get on Oprah and sell 1 million copies. Yeah, so I call that the phantom of the Oprah. It's not going to happen. But if you do a plan first, planning of the 4 Ps, the product, place, price, promotion, that's a very basic plan, and then implement that, then evaluate it and make changes as you're coming along. So by taking that the booklets for colleges and selling those to state governments was a way of just taking a next step from that plan. So I think I'm very big on creating a marketing plan for the business and for each of the products, and then expanding upon that. And it's a guide. I make the analogy of a plan. It's like railroad tracks. It keeps you focused on and moving towards your destination, but it doesn't provide energy. That's what we do as the entrepreneurs, as the authors, and is to create that energy to keep the train moving and moving more quickly towards its objective. And if you can create that plan for long-term stability, long-term revenue, long-term growth, but you have to have the short-term revenue to get to the long-term. So that's what I did, is I planned both of those to stimulate the short-term revenue leading to the long-term growth of the business, stability.
That makes a lot of sense, Brian. So basically, folks, what he's trying to say is that there's a multiple prongs, okay, that have to be implemented at the same time. You got to think about right now, the present moment. You got to think about the future, and you got to think about even further out, longer than that, maybe 10, 20 years. So a longer plan. So he was, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. You were, if I understand you correctly, you're saying you were taking a portion of that revenue and making sure that you can eat today, and then another portion of that to make sure that you can eat tomorrow, and then reinvest another portion into it for long-term portions of your business, whatever that is, a little bit further out.
It's a great summary, a great analogy. That's right.
Okay.
So, yeah, and working a very hungry business too. That
It's not easy being an entrepreneur, right, Brian?
uh, not easy. No, it's I guess that's where you have to love what you're doing, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness begins with the happiness of pursuit. That if you really love what you're doing, then it's easier to deal with the trials and tribulations of rejection and not having an income for a while, and telling your wife that, or your spouse that no check this week. But next week we'll do better. But just having that power behind the train going along the tracks, and that's where that the love of what you're doing really keeps you going. And sometimes it's, well, not sometimes, all the time, I think it's an important attitude, having that self-understanding and ability to have that passion for what you're doing. And you can't go into a book sale and say, this is a pretty good book. Do you want to buy some? Like selling is a transfer of enthusiasm, that you are enthusiastic about your business, about your product, and about your certainly how your content can solve problems. And you can do a very good job selling.
What would you say are the top 3 qualities for an entrepreneur? You listed passion. Would you include that? And if so, what will be the other 2?
Passion, certainly. Product, having something that you can actually sell. It's creativity, I think, is important. It's something that we're not looking at obstacles. I had this image, 2 images that kept me going. One was I had a snowball that I'm rolling up this side of a mountain, and the top of the mountain's in the clouds. I couldn't see it. So I kept building this snowball and rolling it up and getting larger and larger and larger. If I stop, it's going to roll back over. But I know that top of the mountain's up there. So I keep rolling and rolling and rolling. It gets harder and harder and harder. But then all of a sudden you get the top and it goes down, and you just get that momentum going. So you have to have that persistence, have to have the passion to keep going. And another image that I had that kept me going was sitting in an office and thinking about, well, I've got to shut down because I have no income coming in, and then going out, closing the door, and walking out of the office for the last time. And then I'm out of earshot, and the phone rings. It's got that call I've always been waiting for, but I missed it. I missed it because I wasn't there. So it's just. But I think so, as far as the attitudes, you have to have that creativity. You have to have the passion. You have to have understanding of people. That again, you can't do it to try to get rich, because that's a turnoff. If you go into somebody and try to show them that here's my book, here's how many that you need, and it's just they don't care. People don't care about your book; they care about their problems. So you have to have the empathy, understanding. You have to have the persistence. You have to have creativity. You have to, so those are several of those which I think that are the stick-to-itiveness. I don't know if the term is for that, but or persistence, I guess. But it's something that you have to decide you're going to make it work, and you take the lumps, but you also not revel in, but appreciate the good things as they come along. And it's something that you like to say. A good review is like chewing gum. You enjoy it, but don't swallow it. So that's what you're doing as an entrepreneur. You're enjoying the ups, dealing with the downs, and try to level it off. And that's what I. Taking that to the physical part, that's what I did as far as my revenue. Selling to colleges, you have a big spike in May, June, July, or April, May, June period. But I have to level off my revenue year round. So I have to find other peaks. I was trying to find a variety of peaks, so that goes peak to peak to peak instead of 0 and then all of a sudden a big peak. So I guess that's taking the
diversification. You're talking about, right?
Hey, there's a good word for it too. That's right. Finding out what works, and if something doesn't work, you try something else.
How important is purpose for an entrepreneur? Having a purpose.
I guess that's very important. That's something that you're not just out there selling books to make money. It's something that may sound corny, but I really wanted to help people get out of unemployment, because I had been through it a couple of times myself. I understood what it was like with the terrible twos, having 2 kids in college and 2 mortgages on the same house and 2 jobs in 2 years. And it's something that you have that purpose in mind, that here's what I really want to create this business for my family. I want to be able to create the stability for myself as a career, and doing something that I love. So in the process, you're helping a lot of people, which I think is important. So it's something that I would go to a reemployment meeting at a church, or in the basement of a bowling alley, which I did. But it was something that people really understood, that I wasn't just there to sell books. I was really there to help them and communicate with them. And my purpose was to help them do better. And as a result, I did better. So it's gets back to stop selling your book and selling the purpose, I guess, or communicating the purpose or acting on your purpose.
Money, would you say money follows after you put your passion to your entrepreneurship, to your business?
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually the money will come. Of course, you got to focus on the money, but if I understand you correctly, to summarize, you're saying that focus on what you want to do, helping people, and make sure that product's right. And if you help people and focus on the person, the money will come naturally.
It does. That's right. Because you don't set up a plan. I'm going to sell 1 million books, or I'm going to make $1 million this year. It's something that I don't think profit should be part of an objective, because then you start cutting corners. You try to think of what can I do to increase my revenue instead of trying to reduce my costs. And if you just focus on profit, you reduce costs, and you're not looking at the top line, you're looking at the bottom line. So I think that if you can focus on the top line, and I look at that as your purpose, that grows. And then, so the focus on profit is something that can really hurt your business. You need to focus on the working with people and helping them. And I think you succeed. I'm trying to say it without sounding corny, but it's something it's really important to me.
No, it's true. Very true.
I really like to help people. I ran a job search program for my church for 13 years every week. And I really got involved with that. I've never paid for it, but it's something I really felt good about.
Now, Brian, you said don't focus on the profits, okay? Focus on the purpose. I want to clarify though. So while focusing on the purpose, would you say that you still need to be highly aware of that bottom line, right? Like you still have to understand that if you don't make money.
That's great clarification. Yeah, you don't want to be so altruistic that your family suffers and that you suffer. You want to be able to, obviously your family, your needs come first. Basic needs, you take care of that, and then always provide a decent living for my family, and something that was obviously my primary purpose. But then you take you reinvest and go back into your business. But yeah, you're right. I don't want people listening here to think that you just to try to take do everything you can for everybody else without worrying about money. You can't do that.
Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have the heart, they have the passion, they might even have the right product, but they're not paying attention to the money and how to manage it, and they wind up failing because they neglect such a very important essential. And I just wanted to, for those people listening, just want to make sure I know what you mean. I want to make sure the audience understands.
That's good. You're doing a great job of summarizing what I'm saying in a positive way. That's why they call you Dr. Finance. That you're the one that can take that and make it understandable to your audience. So, nice job.
That's the professor in me.
It works.
Well, thank you, Brian. So let's move into a different category. I just want to zoom in real quick on what exactly you do, because some of the audience might not understand what special sales is. Can you elaborate on what it is, and what your experiences is in this marketing, and just talk about the whole aspect of special sales, how that ties into book selling. So remember, Brian's an expert in book selling. He understands the business. Everybody in the business knows who Brian is that has to do with books. He's basically outside the box. Most people think Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. Brian is everything else. Is that right, Brian?
That's exactly right. That I look at it as a dual distribution. I don't say don't sell through bookstores, but just don't count on that. So I look at special sales is non-bookstore marketing, non-traditional marketing. And traditional marketing is the Amazon, the Barnes and Nobles, independents. The special sales or non-traditional is everything else. It's retail and non-retail. So if you look at retail, that is supermarkets, gift shops, discount stores, specialty stores, airport stores, warehouse clubs. These are retailers that, and actually it's, if you're selling through a bookstore, at this point, you already know how to do that, to get to these. because they buy books just as bookstores do. That you get a distributor or a wholesaler, but they're just different ones. You get, for example, could be Reader Link or CyMac sales for discount stores and airport stores and supermarkets, or it could be choice books for pharmacies and supermarkets, or it could be greatrep.com for gift shops, or Event Network for museums and zoos. And so you go to the proper middle person, middleman, and then they do the selling for you. So people who don't like to sell, or don't have the time to sell, don't have the selling skills, then they focus on retail and they get the distributors to do that work for them. And then their job is to promote the books, because retailers, whether it's a bookstore or any retailer, does not sell books. They display books. Barnes and Noble doesn't sell books. They display books. It's up to the author to do the promotion. So when they go to the store or the bookstore, they say, "Wow, I've heard of that Judd's book before. I think I'll buy that," because your competition is right next to you. That if they pick up your book, and sometimes they'll look at it by weight. You know, this book weighs enough. Okay, this weighs $14.95. This one doesn't weigh enough to be $14.95, so I'm going to buy this one. Being a little facetious there, but I think that your competition is right next to you. So retail, you're doing the promotion. If you want to sell 10,000 books, you have to get 12,000 people to each buy one to get 20% returns. So but it's a lot of people start in that segment of non-traditional sales, because that's the most familiar what they're already doing. But you have to think about who's the customer of your customer. The customer of a Hallmark gift store is much different from the customer of a Spencer gift shop. So you have to be able to know who the customer of your customer is, and think of an airport store. Who's the customer of an airport store? Well, when things are normal, that you have business travelers or families traveling on vacation. So their books are those people want to buy. A supermarket, if your target reader is perhaps a family just starting out, well, maybe you want to have your books in supermarkets. But if you're trying to reach somebody who's a mid-career person or a retired person, then you might want to go to airport stores to reach the business traveler, or to retirement homes or associations to reach the retired people. So the more that you can define your reader, then you know where they shop and how and why they buy, which is probably a real good starting point, Tony, that before you go to retail or non-retail, to think about who your target reader is, and use the 5 W's of who, what, where, when, and why. And if you can define that person, and the demographics of, it doesn't have to be income level of 75,000 plus, or 50 to 75. You don't have to be that specific, but if it's looking at it's a product for a family just starting out, that they probably have to be in discount stores and warehouse clubs or supermarkets for reaching them. Or if it's an older demographic, maybe have a large print book. So then where do they shop? And then that tells you where you have to have your books. When do they buy? Is it something that's a gift book? And then why do they buy? Then that's the benefit of it. What let's say is the benefit of it? What do they buy? What is the form of it? Are they looking for information in an ebook, a printed book, an audio book, a seminar, a workshop, a podcast? So that you have to be able to have that array of delivery of your content. So then, if you know where your people are shopping, then you go to the retail side, and then you can make sure you have your books in those places. If they're traveling around a lot, then you have books in national parks. So it's Eastern National. You go to them and they'll get your books, or Western National Parks Association for the West. That you have they're selling your book for you to those travelers. And they're looking for books not just on environment. They're looking on books for kids, because the families are traveling in their RV, that they've got the family with them, and they want books to entertain the kids too. So that's the retail side. The non-retail side is much different. Here in retail, you want to sell 10,000 books, you sell 12,000, one to each person. On the non-retail side, you can sell 10,000 books to one person, non-returnable. So it's not, and they pay the shipping charges in many cases. Examples of a non-retail buyer could be someone in a corporation or a small business, could be an association or schools or military, government offices. These are people who buy they don't buy for resale. They buy products to use as education in a school or for solving a marketing problem in a business. So it's something that you really have to be able to understand their pain points, what they're trying to accomplish, and then you show how your content can solve their problems. So that's those are the two major functions of it. But
and by the way, Brian, this for the audience out there that are entrepreneurs, Brian specializes in non-direct book sales. We're talking about books here, but if you sell other products, Brian, can you take the same idea, the same concept, and apply it to other industries?
oh, sure, that's a great
Right?
point. That's a great point. That's something that actually, when we're dealing with people, we don't call it a book; we call it a product, because it can be in any form. It can be as a booklet, it can be as a ebook, a printed book, or any of that. So you the product, or I see what you're saying. It's not doesn't even have to be a book. It can be any product that whatever you're selling cars. When people come in and talk to you about a car, everybody has a different reason for purchasing that transportation. Whether it's a family, they may want an SUV. Somebody who's more sporty may want a BMW, or somebody who's looking for safety may get a Volvo. So that it's the same concept. They have different segments. The Volvo buyer is much different from BMW buyer, different personalities, different needs. So again, you're segmenting your marketplace. You're finding out what they're looking for in your product, and then when you contact them, or they come into your dealership, you can talk to them more relevantly, because they have that need for your particular product. But you've got to be able to communicate to them why you're the best purveyor of that product to meet their needs. And so it could be selling homes. That it's the concept applies that you're not selling houses. Even the term that it went from selling your house to selling your home, which sounds more comfortable, more family oriented. But it's something that you're what do you want in a home? Do you want a large kitchen? Do you want a big backyard? Do you want an office? Do you want a den? Do you want 4 bedrooms? Do you want 2 bedrooms? Do you want contemporary? Do you want ranch? So you're always finding out, what do the people want? How can I solve your problem? Mm-hmm. As a realtor, how can I solve your problem by getting you the home that you want? And because there are thousands of those available, and that my job is to vet those, find out the ones that are best for you, and then I'll show you those. So the concept of just marketing any product that you're not selling the physical product, you're selling the benefits of that. I used to sell Xerox copiers. There's a feature, advantage, and a benefit. So the feature is the physical part. The advantage is what the feature is. The benefit is what the feature does. And that's what I did. That create what I call a PAR statement. And this can be applicable to any product, Tony. Mm-hmm. That you take a sheet of paper, put it in 3 columns. Left-hand column, product, middle column's action, right-hand column is result. What problem do people have? They want to increase their wealth. What action do you propose in your books, which you have done many excellent job doing providing that action step. And what's the result? And so that's something. In my terms, the problem is that authors and publishers want to make more money. The action I recommend is selling to non-traditional buyers and explaining that and how to make real money selling books. And then the result is you become more profitable. So that's what I talk about. I don't say that you should buy my book. I said, here's how to become more profitable. So then if you take that PAR statement, and it works for any product. You can do that for the cars, for the homes, for so whatever product that you have in your business, that you find out the reason why that they need it, or how they could need it. An example, if you have here's a typical sale might go for a book, for a corporate buyer, that the buyer may say to the author, tell me about your book. Oh, sure. It's 6x9, 320 pages. It's got some beautiful photographs in it. It's nice heavy paper, 12-point cover stock, a nice picture on the cover, great reviews. And look at all these awards that we won. And it's only $14.95. But if you buy 10,000 today, I'll give you 50% off. How many do you want? Well, none. I don't. Why should I? What's that? What's that mean to me? that WIIFM. We're listening at radio station WIIFM. You know, what's in it for me? So that so a different scenario might be
Mhm.
the buyer says to the author, "Tell me about your book." Well, sure, but may I ask you a question first? Okay. Have you ever used a book as a promotional item? No, I haven't. What do you use? Oh, we use coffee mugs. What do you use coffee mugs for? Well, we at trade shows, if somebody comes to our exhibit, we give them a coffee mug. Thanks for coming here. Please come back. Don't a lot of other exhibitors have coffee mugs? Well, they do, but ours has our logo on it. And then do you have to store them? Oh, yeah. And they ship them to each of the shows all around the country. Yeah. Do they ever break? Oh, sure. It's they're coffee mugs. They break. How many normally buy? Oh, we buy 5,000 at a time. So now what do you know? You know how they use the product. You know what their pain points are. They have storage costs. They have shipping costs. They have breakage. You know what their budget is. Coffee mugs, maybe $3 a mug. They buy 5,000, so you know what their budget is. You know how to price your book. Your book has to come in under $3. So just by turning the whole process around of not trying to sell your book, but trying to solve their problems, you have all the information that you need to make the sale. And then they appreciate that because they're not out there to buy books. They're out there to get more people to come to their exhibit. So you get, what we did was one organization, we provided one-time use discount codes and promotional codes. And they would hand this card out to people. Thanks for coming to our exhibit. You go to this website and download any book you want and just use this promotion code. So they didn't have to have shipping. They didn't have to have a damage on that. And when people get a coffee mug, if they go to 10 booths, they get 10 coffee mugs. When they're the night before they're heading back home, they're packing up their suitcase and which one am I going to keep? So, but if you have a business card, then you may do that while you go to the your room that night and just download a free book. So it's a way of solving the problem, and with your content, you're providing your content in a different form. So it's you're solving the problem instead of selling your book. And again, that back to your original point, that process can be applied to any product. Just ask instead of like in writing, you show, don't tell. In selling, you ask, don't tell. So you're always trying to find out why do they want your product? The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I like the platinum rule: do unto others as they would do unto themselves. You know, they don't care what you want; they care what they want. So I think that if you can show how your product, the benefits of your product, can help them in some way, then you get the business, and somebody else is trying to sell the product and not the benefits loses.
Folks, listen to this. I just want to emphasize how important what Brian is saying is, because he's given you like key lessons on sales. Brian is an excellent salesman, and these are the rules. These are the the principles, universal principles on selling. What he's talking about is so important. I mean, to make money, you have to understand your customer. You got to understand what they want. That's what he's trying to say. You got to understand what they want, because that's unfortunately that's the way human brains work. Most people are thinking, what is it for me, right? Is right, Brian? Like,
Right? What's in it for me?
so if you once you get that, this goes back to a lot with if you ever read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Once you get that idea, you're on the road to becoming a great salesman, and sales is extremely important. Brian, can you talk about how important sales is for a business, particularly an entrepreneur? Just sales in general.
Yeah, so that's if you don't have the best product in the world, but people don't know about it, then you're not going to sell any of it. So you've got to communicate that benefit. A lot of authors I know don't like to sell. Then you get other people to sell for them, which I can do that for them. Or or communicating in some way of advertising, or social media, or publicity, or sales promotional. But the more that you can communicate your benefits, I think direct selling is the best way to communicate, because it's two-way. Everything else is one way. If I'm advertising to you, it's here's what I think you need to know. But if it's selling or personal communication, you get that immediate feedback. You get the people can question it. So I think that selling is something that, if you're not good at it, don't want to do it, then get somebody to do it for you. But the process of selling has to be done, or nobody's going to buy it. So if they don't know that it's available, or why it's important to them to even be aware of it or consider it, and that's what the personal selling does, is communicates that.
Brian, do we need money to survive?
Well, yeah. Is this a trick question?
No, it's a simple question. I just want to clarify for the audience. I want them to hear your opinion. The Brian's an excellent, he's professional. He's been doing this a very long time. He's a quintessential entrepreneur. So Brian, in my last book, the Survival of the Richest, I brought home the theme from the first book about how important money is to survive. It sounds, to us, it's common sense, but sometimes common sense is not common practice.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right? So that would be a hard yes, right? You do.
Yes, that's a hard
businesses too, correct?
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, you have to have the money to survive. And no matter how good your intentions and purpose are, then you don't have the money, then it doesn't survive. You don't survive.
In my first book, it was called The Necessity of Finance. How important is finance for entrepreneurs or business people?
Immensely important. It's the use of the money that you're trying to maximize. You're trying to reinvest it. You're planning for that, but the financing of it is certainly that you've got to look at alternative means of financing it. If you're looking at initially, which I did starting out, of how to finance my most economically. So yeah, it's something that you have to understand that the importance of certainly is critical.
So it's not an option. It's necessary.
If you don't plan your finance, you have to call Dr. Finance to resuscitate you.
Resuscitate. Okay, thank you, Brian. I appreciate the trick questions here. All right, so let's talk about the book as a whole. Okay, some just quick points. Last week we talked. Kevin Brierman was here, CEO of Publishers Weekly. He's now CEO.
He was actually on my board of directors for my association.
Yeah, he spoke very highly of you. He speaks very highly of you.
And I have him.
What is the future of books, physical books? With all this technology that's happening, we're now in the ebook and the audio book. Like where's the physical book fit into the future of humanity?
It doesn't. I don't mean to be flip on this, but it doesn't really matter in the sense that, again, you're not selling the book. If people want the information, they'll get it in the form in which they want it. The pandemic, the closure, ebook sales did not increase as expected. They thought everybody's going to buy ebooks because they couldn't go to a bookstore, and they could order it off online, but they thought that ebooks would increase significantly, and they didn't. People actually bought more printed books than ebooks. So I think that in our lifetime, they're not going to go away. But I think that our focus should not be on the product, on the form. The form is a variable.
Yeah.
So like podcasts or something would be increasing more. That ebooks will increase over time, but I don't think they're not going to cannibalize printed books significantly. I think that they can both increase. It's like increasing the size of the pie versus the size of the pieces in the pie. Mm-hmm. That people will just. I don't know if it's an older generation of a boomer likes to. I'm in the boomer category, and I think that I enjoy going to the beach or something, or on a plane. I prefer a printed book just to get it. But the Gen Xers, Gen Zers, they're looking at their phone. They're getting information off their telephone. So I think that the content may go more to mobile marketing, but I don't think that the concept of people writing books will ever go out, or writing the information in the book will ever go out of style. It's just a matter of that you write your content, and then you think, how can I best deliver this information? And if it's a printed book, then you have that. If people want that, if it's the boomers you're marketing to, it may be the printed book. If it's the Gen Zers, the millennials, Gen Xers, maybe looking at more of mobile marketing, or more on social media, or Instagram, or whatever. That so I think that again, if you think about the information, the content, this applies to fiction too. It's not just nonfiction. So if you can get that information across to people, then in the format in which they want, if they want to read it on the phone, that's fine. To me, I wouldn't want to sit on a plane with my phone, reading a book on the phone. Some people love it, you know, but that's why that you market to people differently. You find out why and how they buy books, and that's how you sell it. That's how they buy the information, and that's how you deliver it to them. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question or not, but I think that printed books will be around for a long time, but I think that the pie is growing, and the slices grow along with it.
Oh, that's a great answer. What do you think is the future of the publishing business as a whole?
Well, I think that independent publishing could cause a demise of the business, in the sense that, if I may qualify that I had the television show for 13 years, the Book Authority. I interviewed authors and people in the book business, and I would get authors in there said they didn't have their book edited because they wanted the readers to understand the real me as the author. And people aren't going to read unedited products. If you look at a lot of the covers that are produced by, well, my daughter is an art major, so she did a real nice cover for me, but has nothing to do with a book that's saleable. So I think that by having, there are well over 1 million books published last year, or ISBNs signed, I should say.
Yeah, they're increasing every year too.
Oh, yeah, but the readership is not. It's getting this. It's people. They're looking at it in a different way. They're not looking at the quality of information. Look at the quantity of information, and people will come up with an idea. I've got this great idea for this topic. They're on my show. So I wrote this. I have this great idea for creativity. I said, well, what do you think of Roger Von Eck? Who's that? You know, he's just one of Mr. Creativity. He's wrote all these books on that. Oh, I didn't know that. And they don't do any research of who the competition is out there. And it just says here, like your books on finance are well written and different. They provide a different perspective. Where somebody else will say, I've got the top 3 steps to financial wealth, or just and boom, but the same 3 steps everybody else has. So
how many of those books exist?
yeah, that's
hundreds of thousands. Yeah, top 3, top 5. Just pick a number.
Exactly, and they're no different from others out there. So you've got to have like your product is well produced and good content, and it's different. And it's well marketed. So that's something that the other million books that are out there, they're just people that they have this thought. Here's what I would think that you should know, instead of what exists. What do people need, or what do they want, and what is not available? Well, before I published my first book, I went to Borders in Barnes and Noble, and went to the career section, you know, where they're all alphabetical by author. So where would Judd be? Here's where I'd be. What's nearby? What are the colors? What the pricing? What do they cover? What don't they cover? And what size are they? And so I was able to bring out my book, my first book. I made it 8.5 by 11, because all the other books there were 6 by 9s,
Mm-hmm.
and different color. The pricing was somewhat standard from all the books around me, but I was able to, on the rear cover copy, talk about the things that were in my book that were not in others, that were right next to me. So it's something that a little research on what exists and how yours is different from that. But I think that if people just keep on coming up with the same unedited, cheap, they try to get along real cheap, that they don't have that investment in it, that they don't invest in themselves and their quality. So I think, again, I think I over answer your questions.
No, that's perfect.
That could kill the business, and I think that people may just end up going to the larger larger publishers, more well-known people, people who make their name in other areas. Then they write a book. Then people will probably gravitate towards that versus somebody who writes a book and here's what you need to know instead of what do you need to know, and then I'll provide it to you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
On that note, considering the difficulties of becoming a successful author, what is your message to new authors who are trying to make money in this business, that are writing those books that fit into that category we just talked about, where there's so many more exponential amount of authors coming out every new year now that independent publishing exists in the form that it does? In other words, what do you have to say to them once your book is done? Like, what's your message to them to become successful?
Okay, well, I think before your book is done, you need to define your target reader and find out what the competition is. But say you've done that, and to address your question, you've done that, you come up with a product. I think that the smaller your niche, the more profitable you'll be. Instead of doing mass marketing and competing with everybody else, that find out these smaller niches for something and really work the niche. I looked at colleges as a niche for me. When I first came out with my book, there was a book called What Color Is Your Parachute? And everybody, in any retailer, the first question would be, how is your book different from that? Any colleges, how is your book different from that? So I had to demonstrate why mine was different and better. But so what I did, instead of going head to head against my competition, I thought, who wants a college student to get a job more than the student does? Well, the parents. So I got a list of the parents of graduating college students, their direct mail program, and sold tens of thousands of books to them because they had the desire. They had the they want to get their child a job and out of the house. So they also had the money for it. So I sold a bundle of 2 books and a video to them, and this sold very well because I was able to go to a niche that was I was the market leader in it because I was the only one there. And then I looked at selling a book as a textbook, went to colleges, and then I would offer my services to do a presentation to their students as the author, and did the booklets on that to colleges. So it was, but I try to focus on that one niche, ignoring the much larger mass market of What Color Is Your Parachute. Mm-hmm. And I was able to be very successful just by going to a niche and then expanding that niche. So there was no job search material for the international segment. So I went to the Hispanic. I had it translated into Spanish, and that sold very well because there was no other competitive book in that segment. So I think that the more you can segment your prospective buyers, mm-hmm. and reach them for what they want, then you're not competing with other million people for shelf space and for airtime or for reviewers' time. So you're just on your niche. So that's why it's so important to define your target reader, and then how can you reach them, avoiding the mass market. And I think new authors coming out now, if they can look at, instead of just go, everybody wants to be on Amazon. Why? Yeah. You go there and they do a search for this topic, and every other book in your topic comes up. You don't want that. You want to be able to find out those people who need your content and show them how your book is different from others, better than, and reasonably priced.
Why do you think most authors are failing or fail after they publish their book? They have
poor expectations. They think that I want to be whatever the top author. I want to be the next Dr. Finance, and if I don't do that, and if I can't sell 1 million books in a month, I'm going to quit. They're a little facetious, but they don't understand what it takes to make a book successful, or any product successful. It's particularly a book is a commodity. Right. You have to create a specialty product from that, which you do through your content and niche marketing. But I think you have reasonable expectations. Be willing to put in the effort to make it work, whether it's the investment in it, whether it's spending. I was on 1,200 TV and radio shows. That gave me experience of writing that Beyond the Air product also, but also got my word out. I did personal presentations, not being paid for those. I would drive I'm in Connecticut. It's nice being able to, I can go to Boston or Philadelphia or New York City or DC or Baltimore within a few-hour drive. So I had an enormous market up here, and I took advantage of that. I drove one time. I was in Albany, 2-hour drive west for a 7:00 a.m. show. Went back home, and then drove to Boston 2 hours for his on an evening TV show.
Were you paid for that, Brian? I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
Because you knew that
I wasn't paid by the stations, but the station in Albany hired me to be their Friday noon book expert.
Wow.
So I would go up, or a job search expert. Actually, not they've done books, but job search expert. And so I would go up there a couple hours early, get the local paper, read it, find out how I could personalize the content to be on that show. Cause I only got 2 minutes. I would drive 2 hours, be on the show 2 minutes, and then home. But I wasn't paid for them. But I sold a lot of books.
That's why you did it, because you knew that.
Yeah, I knew this just for because I wanted to be on TV for 2 minutes a week.
Right.
I did it because I wanted to sell books, and in Albany it worked out very well. And then I tried to take that same concept and go other places. And I was willing to drive to New York and back in the same day, and certainly come up with. I would maximize my time while I was there. I would hit 2 or 3. Whether it be a retail store or a corporate store or 2 or 3 different TV shows. And if I had to stay in a Motel 6 overnight, not to denigrate Motel 6, but an inexpensive hotel, I did it.
You did what you had to do.
Yeah,
that's what.
So I think that people aren't willing to do that, Tony. That they not everybody, but those who succeed are willing to do it. Those who want the quick buck are willing to invest time, money, effort.
It is a grind, though. It is hard, but it can be done.
It is. Yeah, but if you're willing to put in that, to persist and persevere, then you can do it.
Thank you, Brian. Excellent feedback. Okay, so just a few more questions, Brian, and we'll wrap it up. Okay.
Sure.
Any advice to the people who are struggling right now in the great pandemic depression? There's so many people that are, out of jobs, and it's so much negativity going on. I mean, just to look at it from a positive perspective, any advice or not advice, but any tips that you would have for them to become more successful at making money somehow? Any advice on them at all?
Yeah, sure. If you're out of a job, do just what I did. Look at the 4 Ps. I did that several times. Look, what do you really want to do? What do you like doing? What don't you like doing? And then, because you assume that you have a lot of time to do that if you're unemployed, that you can create your marketing plan for yourself. And then you go out and do the prospecting. You look at these different companies. And right now, interviewing people are much more likely to interview you via Zoom, because there's no real commitment involved with that. And it's not like having somebody come in or from your perspective, you have to drive somewhere or fly somewhere for an interview. But I think that if you can create the need, I'm just trying to I have an example of that, but it's pre-pandemic. So it's something if you can create the need of why you have the skills that when they start hiring back or remotely, here are the reasons where you can do this remotely. Example, that I was teaching college courses on campus, and they closed down and went totally online. So I took courses on how to teach online, and then I took that information and I was able to go to other colleges. Now I do online courses at 3 different local universities. So it's something that I created that.
You still do that, Brian?
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
Summer I've got in the fall going back on campus on 2 of the university, but one is just staying strictly online. But I told them, here's the courses that I took. Here are the courses that here's the course I took on how to communicate, how to conduct classes online. Here are the courses that I have experience in. I go to their website and I say, okay, you have MKT 295, MKT 301, and marketing, MKT, whatever. I've got courses. I have experience in each one of these. These are the courses I have experience in. So I can do online courses because a lot of teachers didn't want to do online. I did one hybrid that there out of 30 kids and students in the class, 27 were online and 3 were on campus. So they call it a hybrid because the students had the option which they wanted to go. I would go on campus and do that. But so I was able to take that skill and transfer it to other schools. So somebody in the remote working remotely, what skills do you have? How can you transfer those if you want to change industries or change? This might be a time where if you always wanted to be a carpenter, maybe just do it. You learn how to do it. But just if you take a transferable skill, find out what companies need that skill, and then you give examples of particularly if you had some kind of a self-education, you've demonstrated the fact that you're willing to invest in yourself to go in this direction. And if you can do that, I think that's what people want. People, I'm not sure I've expanded this to all companies, but I think companies are less likely to, or not looking to hire skills, they're hiring attitudes. You can teach skills. You can't teach attitude. So if you've demonstrated that you have this persistence, that you this attitude of going out and you have a situation that occurred, nothing to do with your fault, you're out of a job. But here's what I did. Turn that around. My attitude was not to sit back and say, woe is me. I found out new ways in which I had to provide for myself and my family. But so here's what I did. And so you're demonstrating the creativity, the persistence, the purpose that you have, the P's we talked about before about entrepreneurship. So that's what you're selling. You're not selling the fact that I'm really good at coding, or I'm really good at retail sales or whatever, that I have these transferable attitudes I can take to your company that most of you're not gonna say most of your employees don't have, but by demonstrating, again, you don't tell what you did, you show what you did. That here's the courses that I took, and here are the ways I took this information. That's how I expanded it from to the other schools. I could go to any school in the country and teach online now. So it's not because it's a transferable skill, but it's something that again, I think I'm over answering, but you have find out how you can take what you love to do and apply it in different ways, and let people know that you have the persistence, you have the purpose, you have the attitude, you have the creativity to make it work. And I will do that for you, Ms. Employer, that I can help your company succeed.
And these are valuable words. And not only, speaking of portable, this conversation is portable. Someone could be listening to this 100 years from now. It's not just about this moment that you're watching this, the great pandemic depression. It's every single major struggle that you ever have. What he's saying is very valid. You just have to be able to adjust to the new circumstance. Always have a positive mind and have the right attitude. Attacking each issue, right?
Learn how to pivot.
Yeah. All right, Brian. So last 2 questions, and I'll leave the floor for you. So what would you like to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well,
what's next for you?
Building up this business. I'm the only one in the business world now where we're taking, actually not the business world, the publishing industry, where we take other authors, publishers' books and work through a national network of 60,000 salespeople who are not even book reps, they're promotional products reps. So get them to sell books as promotional items. So we're still, we've been doing this 6-7 years, but we're still trying to create that business, trying to get these people to sell books instead of coffee mugs. So it's an educational process, but we're looking to really expand that business into other areas. And it's something that I have a business partner in that focus. So I would say the short term being 5 years, it's something that I would look at building that profitably. So we really have a good solid delivery system of information of books as sales promotional items. So I think that was but I'm also looking at the education area of doing these more courses and being online. It's I can travel down to, which I have done, to go visit with my son in DC and do a class from his condo. So it's something that that if I can work with these students to help them succeed in marketing, particularly my courses are in marketing, that I really enjoy that, Tony. It's really something that if I can communicate with them, I work with undergraduate and graduate students and to impress upon them. In my marketing courses, I always relate back to applying the marketing principles to getting a job. Because I know not all of them are going to be marketing majors. Some of them take it's a required course, they're taking it, but they'll all be out looking for a job at some point. Mm-hmm. So I just try to communicate with them and try to make that work. So I'm not trying to expand the number of courses that I have because I only have so much time, obviously. Yeah. But it's something that if I can continue doing that and building upon that and getting better at that, mm-hmm. that would be probably a parallel direction for me.
Becoming a mentor, pretty much, right?
That's a good way of putting it. Actually, it's a great way of making the pivot from an instructor to a mentor. I like that. That's good. I think I'll use that.
Thank you. All right, Brian. So what would you like to leave as your legacy on this planet?
Wow, you got some great questions. I haven't thought about that because I just kept looking at what I'm doing now and in the next few years. And it's something that I think just that in the tombstone test, and what do you want on your tombstone, is that it helped a lot of people succeed when they thought they couldn't. I don't know about that. That's not right. But the legacy being that I was able to show people something different, a different way of selling books, different way of looking at the product, and as a result, being more successful and something that that's probably the legacy that probably should think about that. If I'm on your show again, I'll have a better answer for you.
Next time. No, I think that's great. I mean, basically, thinking outside the box. You've
without getting in a different box. Just think outside a box, or just get rid of the box and just
get rid of the box.
Yeah.
Get a new box.
Yeah. Just don't want to be in a box. Any box.
Yeah, no one wants to be in a box, right? Yeah. Good point. All right. Well, thank you, Brian. I'm going to leave the floor for you for a moment. Anything you want to say? This is your floor, your time. I want to promote. Want to talk about anything? So I'll give you a moment and feel free to add anything you want.
Sure. Just that we have a program in which we can take your book, your product at this point, printed book, ebook, audio book, to these corporate buyers who purchase in large non-returnable quantities. And we can do that with fiction, with nonfiction. An example could be we had a order for 52,000 books recently, where the book was on eating well through cancer. It was recipes for people going through chemo and radiation, how they can deal with those consequences of those. So we sold it to a pharmaceutical company that made those products for chemo and radiation therapy. They bought 52,000 books, put their logo on the cover, and gave them to doctors. Wow. The doctors gave them to their patients. So that's everybody. It's a win-win-win situation. And so it's something that's the type of program that we put together. Not every order is going to be 52,000 books. We had one client that actually sold 10 books to talk about creative thinking. She went to a funeral home. She had a children's book and sold them 10 copies of the book because they wanted to entertain the kids while the parents are off at the wake. They wanted to keep the kids over here.
That's a good idea.
So she took that and sold, and they started reordering. And then she took that to other similar funeral homes and just built that little by little. So the point is that we can do that for you, and then that's you asked before about the direction I'm going. I want to build that business. So I'm really helping people. That it's not there's a one-time setup fee to be in it, but it's one time for the life of the title. It could be as small as $250, and they're in this program for as long as the book is in print. So it's not, we make our money off the sale of the book, but we do have an upfront cost to cover the setup charges. We have to get the books into search engines and so forth. So we just cover our costs and we make our money off the sale of the book. So we do a lot of promotion on selling the books. So it's something that we organize this whole entire program. There is another company that does it, but they do it primarily for the top 10 fiction and nonfiction and journals. And so we're the only provider of general line fiction and nonfiction books to this 60,000 person sales force. And so I can help people do that. So it's okay to give an email address and phone number?
Well, that's up to you. You might have, a few million people watching this. So with that in mind, you're more than welcome to give out any,
Well,
your website. What's your website address?
Bookmarketing.com or Premium Book Company. Company is all spelled out, premiumbookcompany.com. That's more of the sales program I just mentioned. Where bookmarketing.com is more of the one-on-one consulting I do with people and working with them.
Okay. And do you have a copy of your book you want to show, Brian? Maybe you want to hold up?
Sure. Just happen to have one here.
Okay. Always come prepared. There you go. How to make real money selling books.
That's
And
right.
what year was that published, Brian?
Actually, the update will be out in May, a month from now. So the second edition, which is on here, the second edition, this is about 6 years in the making, or it's published about 6 years ago. And the information is still valid, but it's the context that have changed. So we've updated that in a new edition. But as a quick point, when I had my TV show, I would ask people to hold up their book, and they would say, "Well, here's my book," like this. And but
Remember the title.
just hold it like this, and don't hold it over your face, but just hold it to the side. But thank you for that. But it's how to make real money selling books without worrying about returns. Second edition.
Sounds great, folks. So get your copy there, and that's available where? On Amazon and everywhere?
Unfortunately, yeah. I said unfortunately, it is on Amazon on my website. So it's something that it's not in bookstores. It's a book of how to sell books outside of bookstores. So a lot of bookstores don't want to carry it. But it's on Amazon, on my website, and those are the two places primarily.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you, Brian, and thanks for coming and joining us on our podcast today.
My pleasure.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to close out. So thanks again, everyone. You're listening to Dr. Finance Live, episode 4 with Brian Jud. And please feel free to join us. We're coming up, the next episode will be very good. We're having another special guest on there, so stay tuned. And also don't forget to, if you're interested in learning more about finance, I have a lot of information out there, particularly my books, the necessity of finance, the most important lessons in economics and finance, and the survival of the richest. It's a great way to get started in that order. Okay, so thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.